And thank you for joining me. I'm Jill Bloom, Group Publisher of Walls and Ceilings, and welcome to If Walls Could Talk. It's always an honor to have with me Thea Dudley, our credit overlord and the CEO of Pocket Protectors. Thea, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me here, Jill.
Absolutely. So, Thea, before we got on, we had a great conversation, but we were talking about some pretty interesting stuff that sounds typically really boring, but fascinating and a little shocking information. The Association of Financial Professionals just put out their yearly survey, and it has some shocking results that you think everybody needs to know. So, what does everybody need to know about what these survey results are?
Well, first of all, there's a thank you for giving us a platform because I thought these numbers, when I saw them, I was like, holy mother of God, these were pretty impressive. And typically surveys, I'm always a little jaded on if they've only been around for a year or two, but they've been doing this for 20 years and it's underwritten by Truist Bank. So I like that it's got some teeth behind it. So a couple of the things that caught my eye that I thought we needed to share with everybody was 80% of organizations, and I wrote down some of the highlights from it, were victims of payment fraud attacks in 2023. And that's a 15% rise from last year. So
Wait,
that's
80? I'm sorry, 80? You said 80%?
80%. So
Wow.
there's 20% that are just living in bliss. So,
Yeah, they're lucky.
Godspeed to you 20%, but the other 80% of us are like, what happened here? Checks continue to be the payment method most vulnerable to fraud, with 65% of the respondents reporting their organizations faced fraud attacks of this type. So check fraud still remains the same. I know we've talked about that in some previous episodes where, theft either at the post office level or, theft out of a post box or out of your mailbox that you have at your company. Those all are still hitting the high point. In fact, fraud due to interference with the post office is up 10% over the past year. So, again, you're relying on a government agency to get your money here, and not to get political on us, Jill, but typically those are not the best run.
Yeah.
The other thing that came out that I thought was really interesting was, for the first time in the history of this survey, ACH credits surpassed wires as the most vulnerable payment type for BEC, which is business email compromise fraud. So that's a lot of that hacking, that going into your system and being able to maybe divert the funds by sending a phishing or a smishing email that has them take that conversation a whole different level. And before you know it, you've changed your bank account and all your money's going somewhere else. So that was really interesting to see how that had changed. And then one of the other things that came up was of the organizations that were victims of fraud, only 30% were unsuccessful in recovering funds. So that was pretty good. But what the survey doesn't talk about is all of the time and effort that it takes to recover that money. Because don't forget, if didn't have a copy of the check, if the check never made it to you, then you actually can't do anything with it. You can't go back to your bank. You can't go back to your insurance company. It's not covered. You have to go back to the customer. And all of those things are time consuming. They take a lot of time. They take a lot of effort to do something with. So I don't want to just totally bum you out. And I promised you I'd send you a link for this survey because I think it's amazing and everybody needs to read it.
Oh, yeah, sure. But did you say that only 30% were able to recover their money? That sounds low. I mean, that sounds sad.
Well, no, 30% were unsuccessful in recovering funds. So the good thing is 70% were able to recover, but the downside of that is they don't talk about how much time and effort it takes.
Right.
That doesn't just happen because, hey, we lost this money and someone writes you a check because you have insurance. Insurance is there to, make you feel good, but you have to fight to get them to pay it. So what can some of the things you can do? So now that I've kind of depressed you, which is kind of a trend for me, I usually am like, here's gloom and doom. We talk about when bankruptcy got to be fashionable and all of that stuff, but what can you do to protect yourself? So one of the biggest things you can do is get a payment portal. Absolutely get a payment portal. That'll help with your credit card fraud because customers are inputting their own data, or you're sending them a link that they're responding to. Same thing with ACH payments. you're able to take that conversation out of an email and you're able to put it into the portal form, push out those requests. So if you don't have a portal, get one, get something designed for our industry. If you need help with that, let me know. I'm happy to connect you with some folks. Constant review of your AR, watch for changes in payment history. Customers that are consistently paying their accounts on time and now they're late, it's better to call them. Their check might be like, I'm using what, lost in the mail, stolen. And then, make sure cybersecurity training is there for all of your employees. Really educate them on that. I know there's phishing, smishing, and there's another ishing that I can't remember what it is, but they're getting so clever, even through text now. So sometimes you get a text that you think, oh, this is from someone I know. It starts with, "Hey, you, how are you doing?" It's like, and you're too embarrassed to say, "I don't even know you." Have your
But it
Mariah Carey
looks
moment
authentic.
there. So, don't be afraid to ask who somebody is. It's better to feel bad for a moment.
Right.
And then
You're
really
not
watch for
in
any
my
requests.
contacts.
Watch for any requests in changing how the payment is requested or where it's sent to. Those should be, take that extra beat to really read where it's coming from. So those are, just this study was really interesting, but fraud has just exploded, and any kind of fraud to do with cyber crime has just gone nuts.
Wow. Well, I guess the biggest takeaway is make sure you have a payment portal. Is there a way you can check your payment portal to make sure that that's not hackable?
Well, the cool thing is payment portals, it's like credit card compliance. It takes that out of, when you're talking to the company that you're going to connect with, whatever payment portal company you're working with. And you ask them what their security measures are and, about the encryption. And so most of them are encrypted. They've got the PCI compliancy piece. So it takes a lot of those pieces out of your hands and puts them into somebody, into those tech gurus that's what they live for. They geek out on that stuff. As a credit person, I just want you to pay me, but I got to make sure it actually gets to me.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So
oh my gosh.
there's lots of good portals out there. Supply is one that I highly recommend because it's for our industry. It was basically written for our industry. There's a couple of other really good ones out there. You just have to know what you're looking for and what you want it to be able to do.
Sounds great. Well, Thea, as always, thank you for all the incredible nuggets of information, and we can't wait. We'll make sure that we get a link to that survey that you're talking about.
Oh, it's 24 pages of joy.
Oh, yeah.
So just listen to this podcast and you basically have the gist of it.
Perfect. All right. Sounds great. Well, if anybody has any questions, Thea, how do they find you?
Just reach out to me at thea@creditoverlord.com. And, you're certainly welcome to go to my website at Pocket Protectors LLC, and that'll get you there as well.
Sounds great. And if anybody has any questions for us, it's roofingcontractor.com or wconline.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for all our free content, especially make sure you follow us on all our social media channels so you can stay up to date on all the great content we're putting out, especially great nuggets like we get from Thea. But most importantly, stay safe and healthy, and we can't wait to talk to you soon. Thanks again, Thea.
Thanks, Jill.